Welcome to Revoicing the Future, a podcast amplifying women's voices in the music industry. Just as revoicing a chord creates a completely new perspective on the invaluable notes that make up the whole, we're doing the same, giving women the space, the spotlight, and the seat at the root they've always deserved. Every month, join us for candid conversations and stories worth hearing from the women who make up this industry. This is their platform. Together, we shape the industry, one interval at a time. Revoicing the Future is presented by Women of NAMM, powered by AKG, and co-produced and edited by Natalie Morrison, Stephanie Lamond, and Julia Olsen. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Revoicing the Future. I'm your host, Natalie Morrison. I am so excited to be back again with you for another episode, and this month is a beautiful one. I had the absolute honor of interviewing Tiffany Kerns. She is the executive director of the CMA Foundation and also the senior vice president of industry relations and philanthropy. She wears so many hats, but what her core focus of her work is the human experience and being a service to others. And that really rings true throughout the entire conversation. We talk about her upbringing in political science and how that merged over to the nonprofit space and how she is showing up for the country music industry, how she shows up for music education. It's really a beautiful conversation, focused a lot on the importance of listening. And our industry is just in such a beautiful place because of her. And I think a lot of you are going to get a lot out of it. And I have a whole set of notes of exercises and tools that I'm going to add to my toolkit that I'm going to be testing throughout the month that I just really resonated with a lot of the things that were said in this episode. And I can't wait for you to listen. So with that said, sit back, relax, grab your favorite snack, and don't forget to subscribe to the Substack and follow us on Instagram. And I will see you next time. Hi, Tiffany. Welcome to Revoicing the Future. It is an honor to have you join the podcast.
It's wonderful to be here. Good to see you, Natalie.
Let's start at the very beginning because CMA wasn't initially on your radar. So how did music find you?
It's a really good question and a little bit by accident. I don't know that I was seeking out an opportunity with music per se. I feel like what I was drawn to is this idea of working with humans, having an impact, and wanting to be somewhere where I felt like you could pave your own way, carve new opportunities, and CMA offered that. And 13 years later, I am beyond proud of everything that we've been able to achieve, not only in the music education space, which you obviously know through the CMA Foundation, but also on the membership side, how we show up for our people in our industry, how we make sure that they feel seen and that they have the tools and resources to thrive in country music. So all in all, a little bit by accident-ish, if you ask that question, how did I come into music? If you ask me, how did you find your way by following your passion? It has always been to be at the service of others.
I was reading that when I was doing my research on you, and you've had such a profound way of speaking that way about the work that you get to do and being of service to others and just being people first. And I think that's a really beautiful thing because it doesn't matter the industry that you work in. And I love that.
I've always been drawn to roles where, again, you can show up for individuals who need it. And one could say that, that only happens in philanthropy. And I would argue you can find that actually in almost anything.
Yeah.
What you have to make sure is that at your core, you believe in what you're doing. And I've been really fortunate that I've been drawn to positions, spaces, places, industries that have allowed that to ring true for me, to really making a difference on behalf of a community, no matter whom it was. Needed it, wanted it, and deserved it. And I love that I got to be a part of it.
Was there a moment in your life, and maybe this will dovetail later on in the conversation, that kind of sparked this love for being people first and being at the service of others?
I don't know if there is a specific moment, but I think when you grow up, I grew up in a single family home. I had a mother that worked tirelessly for her daughters. And I don't know, I feel like from there, you're kind of molded into how you want to show up in the world. And for me, it was always thinking with an empathetic lens and just being mindful that what you show up and see is not always exactly what's happening. And so I feel like I've just always been drawn to people's stories. People joke in our office, they're like, you're the only person that when you're tired, you need to go be in a room full of people. And for me, it is, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, it is so true. I get my energy from being around individuals who inspire me or who want to brainstorm or be curious. So again, I don't think there was one moment per se, but I do think that how I was raised gave me the foundation to always want to be thinking about how to serve others.
Funny that you say that because the extroverts, right, they thrive on being with other people and being outgoing and everything. And then the introverts kind of rejuvenate themselves in quiet. But I resonate in the fact that, like, yes, I need my quiet space and I need to not be around people, but also people inspire me to kind of push me forward and do all those things.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So your education had a real impact on you and where you are today. So can you talk about where you grew up in Florida and how those years shaped you to then ultimately receive a degree in political science?
Yeah. So I was always just fascinated with politics. I mean, even from a young age, I think that I had, again, parents, grandparents who very much felt motivated to be involved politically, even if that just meant voting. But it was always something that we talked about in the house, like, this is your civic duty, you need to be voting. And it wasn't because voting for voting's sake, it was, you have a voice and you should utilize that voice whenever appropriate and you can. And so I feel like, again, that was a little bit of a foundational piece. But I would also say I grew up going to a public school all through K through 12. And I didn't realize at the time that that is not necessarily everybody's journey or story. I legitimately thought everyone went to public school. So even though my hometown had private schools, but for whatever reason, it wasn't necessarily like you go to a private school, you go to a public school, and that means that, you know, there is a more affluent community here or not. I didn't grow up that way. And so I remember the first time that I went to the University of Tennessee and I was going through sorority recruitment and hearing different women tell me that they came from a private school. And I'm like, what happened to your public schools? And they're like, what do you mean what happened to our public schools? I'm like, why did you go to a private school? I mean, I really could not fathom it. So I think for me, when you are in public education, by the way, is almost this byproduct of being attached to government. So I also think you get this very weird, interesting experience of being tied to politics, even though in theory, education is not tied to politics at all, but it's still federal, state and federal, right? So it is a part of government. And I just remember being really inspired by Jeb Bush, who was governor of Florida, and saying, you know, I think I might want to go into politics, or lobbying kind of interested me. I love to argue with the best of them. And went to UT, said I'm going to be a poli-sci major pre-law. And I started to kind of figure out in my early professional career that I don't actually think I want to be a politician. I think what I loved about politics is this interaction you have with humans. And that is where it started to all like make sense to me and all have this connective tissue. Like, oh, I just like showing up for people. Okay, well, I don't necessarily have to be a politician to do that. I can find other ways to weave that into my professional story. And so I'm still really thankful that I have it, because obviously by being a poli-sci major, you learn a lot about history and diplomacy too, like the best kind of diplomacy. And I do think it gave me some tools to allow me to be a better professional simply by learning historically what had happened in our country, across the globe, when it comes to politics, because nothing is easy, nothing is linear, it doesn't have this like perfect line. It's complicated, and that really interested me. It does continue to show up. I don't know any professional that doesn't feel like their journey has been similar to that, even if you don't make that comparison to politics. It's like, oh no, this happened and then this happened. And sometimes you have to lean in order to get your way. And I feel like I was learning all of that while I was in college through academia.
With your experience in the political science world, what did you do like right when you graduated? Because then you sort of transitioned into the nonprofit space. So can you share that story and what you learned from that experience?
Yeah. So I was on the campaign trail because I was fascinated by, again, what really made a individual want to vote, made them passionate about a candidate. And so I got a glimpse of that over the course of about 9 months, but it is actually what set the fire in me to say, like, man, there are so many ways you can show up for individuals. And that led me to having a conversation with the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation on something that I thought was so amazing, which was they were investing in their own drug therapeutics pipeline. So the drugs that the patients would be taking, they were actually funding. Yes, it's a fascinating model, but I loved this idea of going, wait, there is a way that I can show up for people, advocate for someone who has a disease, advocate for families and the support and the tools that they need, while also being a part of something that is really innovative and bringing drugs to market so these families and these patients don't experience life loss and experience a different kind of life, one that has dignity and one that allows them to do anything and everything that we can do. And that felt really good. And then there was also this place where you're really learning about advocacy in a different way. Again, advocating for a very specific group of individuals who are trying to overcome and work through some of the challenges that they may be faced with, whether it's insurance companies, the cost of healthcare, or just advocating for them to have basic resources in a classroom or in a hospital. Again, just thinking about all of those things. I really liked having the seat that I did where I felt like I got to be a part of all of it. And it led me to have really interesting experiences. I moved across the country. I moved to a city that I had never even been to. When I lived in San Francisco, I remember moving there and going like, this is a really different place, and falling in love with it because, again, when you have this sheer appreciation for humans, you're so interested in hearing people's stories. And I very much enjoyed the nearly 3 years that I spent there, just getting to learn different cultures. And even in the US, I mean, it is different. You could go to the North Bay, go to Napa, go to Sonoma, different culture than what you experience in Lower Haight, where I live in the city. You think about Oakland. I just have such an appreciation for the Bay Area. It was truly some of the best years of my life. And I lived there the exact moment that I should. I was naive enough. It didn't matter that I didn't have a ton of money. It was just a beautiful time to live in that city. And then fast forward, the CMA opportunity presented itself. And again, while you would look at those two positions and say they have nothing in common, I would tell you they looked almost identical to me.
Really?
You're starting a foundation. You want to show up for young people who have aspirational goals. And at the time, I thought essentially participate in music, like we're creating the pipeline for CMA. I couldn't have been more wrong. No, they just wanted to do good and felt like our industry, we are often examples, or we have been the beneficiaries of having high quality music education, which is why we went into the music industry or feel drawn to it or have an appreciation for it. And so this idea that now I was going to represent millions of young people who deserve the opportunity to participate in music ed, I liked it. I liked this idea of how we had to advocate to remind people why they should support music ed, even if they have zero desire to be musicians. I probably equally loved this idea of convincing non-musical people that it's just as important to them as their musical peers. So I liked that I could immediately see this opportunity of advocacy, which was important to me, helping others and launching something, being a part of something that was so ready and ripe to be built. And if there is anything I can say, this kind of through line throughout my career is I'm a builder. I love building things that are not just, these one-off success examples, but how do you actually build something that can scale, but also that can evolve and strengthen every single time? And 15 years later, I could not be more proud of where the CMA Foundation is today. And the other role that I have on CMA equally as proud. Like there's just been so much opportunity that has been presented in my 13 years here. Really, really proud of everything that has been achieved.
I love this. I want to unpack a couple of things that you mentioned because I thought
Please do.
You're just so elegant in how you speak and talk about this. The time that you were in San Francisco, I really like how you touched on that. It was the right moment for you to be there. For anyone listening who might be in that space in their life where they're trying to make that next move or wondering, how do you know when an opportunity is right, especially when it's like an unknown territory, what would you say to them?
For me, I was terrified and thought, why would you be doing this? At the same time, I was so excited for a new opportunity. So I think both of those things have to happen. I was listening to a podcast once and they said, why do women often not take an opportunity? And they said, one is we will talk ourselves out of it, fear. So that's why I say that terrified piece, right? You have to have that. But as long as it's being met with excitement means you're ready. And so when both of those worlds collide, I think that's when you go, it's not going to be perfect and it doesn't have to be forever. And for me, I told myself, I mean, I will never forget calling friends probably, 6-8 weeks after I had been in the role and going, I don't think I made the right decision. And
when you went to
San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
And honestly, I couldn't even tell you who shared this piece of advice with me, but they said, hold out for 90 days. If you can do anything for 90 days, you'll start to see this calm because your human behavior has to catch up. Again, we're humans, we're complicated, and yet we are also so predictable. But when you take yourself out of routine, it just takes a moment for your body, like truly, to catch up and start to feel different. Not to mention, if you've ever been to San Francisco in the summer, they will tell you it's the coldest summer you had. And I'm so used to usually we're at a pool or we're out on the lake and what is this? So it took me a minute. And I think the minute that I looked up and said, give this city a chance, the minute I started to fall in love with San Francisco, the job got really good.
Interesting.
And so I have journaled since I was 18. I think you have to have a lot of conversations with yourself and write down when you don't feel a certain way, because you also won't see growth if you can't reflect on where you were. Yeah. And for me, I was starting to be able to see this evolution of how I was feeling and going like, oh, Tiffany, it is getting better. It's hard for you to know it when you're in motion, but I was able to reflect and immediately saw, okay, I'm going to be okay. And then the same thing, even again, I'm just a creature of habit. So, for me, change is exhilarating and it's also terrifying just because of the routine element.
Correct. Yeah, I'm the same way.
When I came to CMA, I was like, oh my gosh, did I make the right decision? And of course I did. I just needed to give my body, again, my mind, the time that it needed to go, hey, you're going to land just fine. Like, this is going to be great. And the minute I started getting traction, it was good. But I will tell you, I think San Francisco set me up. And going to UT, I didn't know a soul at the University of Tennessee besides the football coach. And I feel like I knew when I was in high school, I wanted to go out of state for college for this reason right here. So I would move somewhere and understand that it's just one moment in time and that it will pass. So that way I'm not so concerned with taking on new opportunities or going to new opportunities simply because of the fear of, ruining a routine. And so it has been something that has actually helped me throughout my career.
It's so funny because when I moved out to LA, I had very similar experiences too, in the fact of I'm so used to having a fall, and here fall is summer. So me not seeing the leaves change in October, I was like seeking apple picking out. Yes. It's like,
because that's what you're used to. So it takes a moment. You're like, wait, is this right? Should I be here? Should this be happening? And again, you just have to be able to reflect and go, it's different. It's a new.
It's a new. I love that. So let's dive into your roles at CMA, which I'm really excited about. And you wear so many different hats. I'd love for you to walk us through your first role at the company and then how that evolved to the executive director and then also the senior VP of industry relations and philanthropy.
Yes. So I honestly could not even tell you what my title was, but I was hired to help. The foundation had just launched. And when I say just launched, pulled a 501c3, did the charter, did the paperwork, pulled a board together. And then they had started to make investments in the Metro Nashville public school system specific to music education. And I think they were getting to a place where they were going, this feels good. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do, but how do we make sure we're measuring impact? So I think that allowed them to have an appetite to want to bring someone in that, quite frankly, I mean, I even remember going, why would they hire me? I have very little experience when it comes to education, but I hope anyways that what I was able to showcase was a hunger and a desire to be curious, which I think is so important to say, I actually don't know, but I will find a way to figure it out and to be the most expert in it if you give me the opportunity, because I believe in lifelong learning. I want to push myself. I like to be curious and ask a lot of questions, to be the person in the room that's like, why do we do it that way? Why does education do it that way? Which, as you can imagine, I got a whole lot of answers. I think that there was just this sincere appetite for going, the foundation is created. We did that. We got that over the finish line. Now, how do we start to build a legacy? And that was incredibly exciting. And so probably after 3 or 4 years, we started to expand beyond Metro Nashville Public Schools, going into all 50 states, making sure that we weren't just the individuals going, here's money, and you guys solve it. Instead, we became partners. We became investors in music ed. And so we sit down with partners. We're generalists. We ask them what they're challenged by. Why do they need additional funding? Are there other ways outside of funding that we could be supportive? And it's why we've removed from our vernacular the term donation or gift, because we really believe it is an investment that we are making in the organization and then they are making in us, or the school district, or the project, whatever it is.
Interesting. So you completely removed, it's not called a donation to a school district, or
it's an investment.
Yeah.
And because when you make an investment, you are an equal partnership, in my opinion, right?
Yeah.
You're going, I'm investing in you because I see something, and you are trusting that I have the confidence in investing in you. So how do we start having those conversations? And I will tell you, I've watched it over the course of 13 years. When someone calls and says, hey, you should know I'm really struggling with this, the honesty that our partners have, they know they can have, because it doesn't change anything. I'd much rather them show up and tell us exactly what's happening and let us walk through that thing with them. I don't ever want them to feel like they're on this island by themselves. And it also means that we're not the partner for everyone, right? We may come across an organization that just says, we're looking for a donation. Awesome. I can point you in that direction. Probably not going to be us, just because we really feel like we actually need to be involved and engaged with our partners.
And also with the education side, just because you're the Country Music Association, like it's not focused on country music, it's for all.
For all. Yeah. And here is the thing. Early on, we made the commitment to ourselves to say, we don't care how you teach it. It's like when you run a business, you don't want anyone coming in and telling you how to run the business unless you've been consulted. And then you go, come in and help me. And so that's the role I actually see us playing is, again, as a generalist, we're consultants. So we're coming in and saying, however you want to reach students. I think about a district conversation that I had last week, and they are really struggling to have students sign up for band. And based on where they are in the country, I said, guys, like maybe your students want something different. And they're like, we know they want something different. I mean, their attendance has diminished. We're talking 11 students, 5 in the fall, 6 in the spring wanting to do it. And I said, based on where you are, what about something strings? And so we were having this conversation back and forth. And I was so blown away that they were open, they were honest. And then we walked away with me going, hey, let me pull a few partners together and see what we can do to reinvigorate your community through music. But it means you have to be a really good listener. And I think that has led us to be pretty successful at the foundation. So the foundation started with 1 employee. We now have 5, including myself, which makes me very, very happy. And then in 2020, an opportunity presented itself on the CMA side, and our CEO approached me and said, what would you think about coming to the CMA side, if you will? I was very much part of the CMA family already, but coming to the CMA side and taking on industry relations membership. And I immediately could see the replication of the success we had done through the foundation, meeting people where they are, listening, being curious. All of those things in my mind are just this model for success when you are serving people. And so we both looked at each other like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And I will be honest, I think at first we were both me and the CEO were both really nervous on whether or not I would be fulfilled, because I've never been more passionate about music education in my entire life. But if there is one thing that I can tell you about myself, is I am one of the most passionate people on the planet. If you need me to sell you on Costco, girl, I got you.
I heard that about you before.
I do not do anything at 95%. It's 110 for me. That is just my personality. I am just a passionate observer. I'm a passionate learner. I'm a passionate executor. And I think a lot of that comes from, again, having this interest in politics and watching aspirational leaders. I want to be an aspirational leader. I want to be a leader that is respected, sought after, one that you look at and you go, I believe them. And when I took on membership or industry relations, I saw an opportunity to remind the community that we represent them. So I did a lot of listening, and the fortunate part is that happened during the pandemic. There was not, in my opinion, not a moment in time for the organization to show up as an association more so than in the pandemic. Every association, you needed to care about your members. You needed to understand what they were going through. You needed to understand how your industry was going to be impacted or affected by the pandemic. And so while I feel like we didn't sleep on my team for a solid 2 years, it also centered us in why we do what we do and got us back to how do we show up and serve those that represent our industry, our membership. And so now we oversee anything and everything you would imagine in a member organization. So honoring excellence is something that's important to us. So awards and balloting is on my team. Inclusion is on my team, making sure that we are thinking about anyone and everyone, and are they at the table? Have we made space for them? Have we given them an opportunity? International is on my team, which I absolutely love. Again, that global expansion of country music and how we can facilitate conversations all across the globe as it pertains to country music. Our membership. And then there's a lot of those benefits programs that we oversee. We have academies where we talk about how we pour into our communities, how they continue to get additional education or resources to allow them to thrive professionally and personally. The way that I think about our team is we show up to make sure that the industry can continue to move forward outside of what you might see commercially. Are the people that are in this business equipped and have the tools they need to continue to be successful? And when people are successful, the products, the creation of things that you create, when they are successful. And so how do we create the environment where our creatives can keep doing the things that they do?
Beautifully said. I think as we dive more into kind of the music education side and just all the different buckets that you touch on, you said something really fascinating that really struck a chord with me about that one school that maybe band's not the option here. And I think we're in this period with music education where music is not a one size fits all. Music education is not one size fits all. So what's happening in one district is not going to be the same thing that's going to happen in another district. Maybe the kids need more options in more of the commercial music side of things, or mariachi or orchestra. And I think if we get ourselves out of the mold of like, this is music education in a book.
Yep. Here's
fun.
The template. I always say there is no template. People are not products. We are people. We have feelings. It changes. But also, if you look at the changing media landscape, how we consume music, media, information, of course, the things we want to do have naturally evolved. And you have to pay attention to environmental things that are happening. And you're exactly right, where I think I look at a district. And it was really important for me to not slap their hand and say, oh gosh, well, you can't get rid of that. 11 students is better than none. It's like, instead, I want to be the person that goes, hey, I'm going to walk through this with you. And here's what's so crazy. When I called them and I'm like, what do you need? And they're like, we have the funding. We just don't know how to start something new because we've been one of those districts that has just had band the entire time. And I'm like, got it. Well, I can help you with this piece. And so I think, again, it's people listening and going, how do we do this in partnership? I'm not fixing this for them, by the way. I'm just making sure that I am introducing them to the right individuals, and I am putting forth options that ultimately they have to decide. But I find when you praise them for at least recognizing that they want it and they just haven't known where to go, it's like, well, I can be that missing puzzle piece. And guess what? You're going to have students that thrive the minute we get this thing started. So you're exactly right. There is no template. We are seeing it. We have more music programs asking for us to have a songwriter come and speak, have a producer come and speak. There is this idea of, wait, I kind of want more than what is being offered to me. And so I have loved watching the industry slowly get to a place where they're going, diversity of sound and thought is necessary and needed, because it's far better than imagining music not being in the veins of our young people simply because adults couldn't get out of the way.
With your degree in political science and the advocacy and the policy work that coincides with music education that I know you're so involved in, do you think that's your superpower in the success that you've had?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been helpful. I believe that there are things, again, because I'm a passionate person, oftentimes that passion can show up. Look, I have to be really mindful of it. It can show up and be very one-sided and stern. Like, this is what I believe, and there is truth to that. And I have to be mindful that I'm giving space in the room to listen. I have different tools, if you will, that I have before I walk into a room if I know I'm about to have a really difficult conversation, or I know I'm going to speak to someone who thinks polar opposite of me. I have different things that I say, like remind myself, remember they're human. Oftentimes I'll say, this is where they grew up, their parents' names, these were whomever, just to center myself in, oh, I'm just walking into a human conversation. Not I'm walking in with my view and, the vantage point I have and theirs, but instead, I'm going to walk in. It does not mean that I haven't walked out of the room going, we will agree to disagree. But I do think that we have a responsibility to our young people. And if I'm frustrated with every conversation that I have, then young people aren't getting what they need. So again, that's where I say adults often are the complicators in why something's not moving forward. And so I just always try to center myself in the kids deserve better. Our youth deserves better. Our future deserves better. And your opinion, your thoughts, or your feelings alone should not be at the detriment of what they get. And so I try really hard to lean into being passionate, being open, and again, being that active listener in those settings. And then again, I do think having a background in understanding politics allows you to know that, like anything, it's a moment in time. So tomorrow will look different, and next year will look different, and 10 years from now it will look different. I mean, I think about some of the things that I've seen in politics over the course of my life. I don't know that I had ever imagined. I was hopeful, but I don't know that I had ever imagined seeing a woman run for president. I just remind myself it isn't everything, and just be a good human and have certainly your viewpoints and be passionate about things, but also it's so important to remember a lot of people are counting on you to have diplomatic conversations so they can ultimately get what they need in order to be successful.
Wow. That was so beautifully stated. And I keep going back to the fact that I love how human first you are. Like, that is truly in your blood, and everything that you do, you look at the whole person. And it's really refreshing to have that conversation with someone, because we're so dialed in on like, what's the next thing that we have to do? What's the next thing, that sometimes we forget, yeah, no, we're people too. Like, everyone has their viewpoints. We can have these conversations. And I think it's really admirable.
Everyone's mental health is incredibly important. And if you find that, you know what, I'm exhausted, I can't have that conversation, you also can set up boundaries to say, I can't do this conversation right now. Tap in somebody else, tag in someone else, or simply know that you're not in the headspace or the mindset to be able to do it. It has certainly happened in my career. And so I think the best colleague you can have is yourself. Please talk to yourself, journal, because you will reflect, and people might feel like that sounds crazy, but it is so important to say things out loud, write them down, and allow yourself the ability to be able to reflect with the most like human part of you that there is. I think that it can be one of the most emotional experiences you have. I also think it can be one of the most healing, but also impactful reflections that you can have. And so I highly recommend being your best colleague.
Last week, I did a session at the Music for All summer band camp.
Yeah.
And it was on the book, How Women Rise. And Julie Duty came with the exercise of If you name your brain, you can talk to your brain, like give it a dedicated name and have these conversations with your brain.
Absolutely.
If your brain is ruminating, if it's making you overthink about things, I've really been leaning into that recently.
Yes.
I named her Nancy. So I'm like, okay, Nancy,
I love it.
You gotta shut off now.
I think that is beautiful. And look, if that works for you, how wonderful, right? Like you've unlocked this tool that allows you to be better personally and professionally. If I am about to have a conversation and it's a hard one, I always record myself to go, oh man, you thought that was going to sound different than it does. So different words. We are so terrified to do mock anything. So do mock with yourself. Record yourself having a conversation and you will also recognize, ooh, that feels way too perfect, or that's not human enough, or you know what, I actually want to get better at getting to the point faster. I mean, whatever it is. And sometimes it's also, this really upset me. I need to get it out of my brain. Oftentimes I'll do these voice memos when I'm in the car. I just hit record and I'm like talking to myself. And then the next day I listen to it and I'm like, oh, I feel so different today than I did yesterday. And it allows you to compartmentalize, but it allows you to also move through it. So you're like, okay, that was yesterday, today's today. Like versus this looming thing that you just have kept in your brain and it just like sits there. So
ruminates for eternity.
So, for sure. Because women are also, we're those people that something happens and then 3 years from now, we're like, I remember when that happened. And oh my gosh, and you haven't like worked through it yet. And it's 3 years later and no one's thought about that conversation and no one's talked about it, but you remember it. I mean, can I get a yes? Because I'm telling you, it happens too often. But I do find that it's helpful when you allow yourself to have a book open, close a book, reflect on it, close it. Like it makes all the difference in the world.
There's so many tools that I'm going to be using. I talked like in the car, I'll like talk to myself. I'm going to record myself now because that's genius because I'm already doing it. But to go back and love it. Okay, we're going to go back down the music education rabbit hole because I really want to talk about the Music Teacher of Excellence Award.
Yes.
A little birdie told me that it's one of the proudest things that you have done. And I want to learn how this came to life. What was your vision and the goal? And then what impact have you seen over the years within the music education world because of this?
Yeah. So this would have probably been 2 years after I started. We were, again, when you are curious and very inquisitive about why are things done a certain way, myself, our CEO, and the chairman of our board at the time, Joe Galani, sat down with teachers in Metro Nashville Public Schools and just asked them, like, what are you all plagued by? Mostly because we had been giving $1 million to the district, investing in instruments, and that felt good, but the morale of the teachers still, you could feel it. And so we wanted to ask, like, what is happening? And again, I was starting to travel across the country and also see this, like the demeanor, even when you are investing in instruments or investing in resources, while they're so appreciative, you can see this challenge that they're like holding on to and you can't quite figure out what it is. And so we just point blank asked, what's going on? Like, we need to get in your head a bit. And they were really honest and they just said, I'm not respected by my peers. And I should say peers within the education field. I do feel like I'm only called on for things like having the students perform. Everyone just sees it as performance. They don't see all the work that goes into it or how it is transformational for students. And I don't know, it would just be nice to feel seen. And I just go, wow. And so myself, again, our CEO and the chairman, we're all like, man, what does that look like? And I had already gone through 2 CMA awards, and I thought to myself, well, for the organization that, by the way, knows how to honor people better than anyone, in my opinion, how do we do that for them? And so we said, what if we launched this? And I'll be honest, what it is today has certainly evolved. But when we did it, I feel like we thought, man, this is going to be a really cool dinner. The very first one, we honored 50 teachers from Metro Nashville Public Schools. So no other teachers in the U.S. And you would have thought, they won a Super Bowl. They went to Disney afterwards. They met the president literally because they had an open bar and dinner. And I think we all reflected on that moment and go, there's something here. So how do we keep with the intent, but also expand it, right? These are not the only teachers that need this. This is a global challenge, but certainly a national issue that we are being faced with in the education sector as a whole, but really in the arts culture. And so We created and officially coined Music Teachers of Excellence and said it's going to be a national program. We want to have judges, we want adjudicators, we want to make sure that these teachers really are reflective of excellence. And every year we go, okay, next year we got to outdo ourselves. And we sit and we look and we go, how are we going to do that? And I think about this year, just looking at the artists that we already have locked in. I always say now it's the CMA Awards, but for music teachers. It is really meant to feel star-studded. We want the teachers to feel seen, feel accomplished, see their achievement, and recognize their greatness. And we also want to remind the industry that they made a commitment when they started the foundation 15 years ago, that we have this responsibility to be a voice and a vision for music education moving forward. And you can't reach students if you are not investing in teachers. It's impossible. And so for us, we wanted to hopefully remind teachers why they got into the field in the first place, and for them to remind themselves the impact that they are having every day on young people. And we're very thoughtful and meticulous in how we do that. And artist sits with every single teacher. We have performances because we ask the music teachers, do you love this event? They're like, we love this event, but we're coming to Nashville. We kind of want to see live music. And we were like, oh, we thought you would want it to be all about you. And they're like, no, we're not really good at getting all of the look anyway. So now it's morphed into this industry-wide celebration for our teachers, which I actually think does more advocacy for our teachers, because we're able to draw people in for their love and appreciation of music. And then they get there and fall in love with the teacher. Because we have partner sponsors at every table. I mean, I can't tell you, Natalie, how many times a teacher has sent us an email and said, so-and-so was sitting at my table and I told them I needed, I'm going to make it up, 30 recorders, and 30 recorders were delivered to my classroom yesterday. And that has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with putting really passionate people about their programs at tables with other people who believe in our mission, and then watching us get out of the way and the magic happens. So I see this event as being the ultimate facilitator. We invite the principal, we invite the superintendent. Why? Because we need that through line into the executive leadership. We need to remind them what this does for their community. There is not a community in this country that does not rally around music, whether it's at a fair or a street festival, a funeral, a wedding. Like, there is always music. So why would we ever allow our students to not have it as part of their school day and after school is beyond me. And so how do we let this event be bigger than one night? How do we let it facilitate conversations, create inspiration in people, and keep our educators in the classroom where they were doing the most meaningful work?
Kind of going back to what you said at the very beginning of our conversation, it almost serves as a catalyst for reaching the people who are not immediately affected.
That's it.
By music, right?
Absolutely.
That's the through line that we need, especially today, of why music education is important, why investing in music teachers specifically is important, why building that pipeline, right? All the things. That's really beautiful. And teachers aren't celebrated like that. Ever.
And they need to be. And I'm hopeful that, by the way, it will inspire someone to go, like, we need to do this for all teachers, because it is incredibly important. I will also say we feel like we have a responsibility to also get out of our echo chamber. That was one thing that became very obvious to me when I started in music ed, and that is we love talking to ourselves. And I love the arts community like nobody's business. So hear me say that, y'all. At the same time, I can't keep going to the same conferences where we're having the same conversations. Like, we have got to explain to leadership why this is important. And I think one of the best ways we can do it is to show them. So we use our event to encourage and invite certain leaders to be there so they understand it. By the way, the best way to understand is to see it, to watch it. Whether you're watching students perform, an artist perform, or an artist give testimony to why they get to stand on a stage today because of a band director or choir teacher who changed their life. And I think in those moments, you become more human, right? You're like, oh, I'm not the person that just knocked on your door and advocated for music ed. You're the tech giant that isn't even sure how music fits into what I'm talking, but I've made you see the importance of it. And so I think we have a huge responsibility in talking outside of our community, outside of the echo chamber, whether it be just country music or even just the arts community. How do we get the education sector to really see the beauty in our music teachers?
Yes. I don't have to say anything else.
Yep.
Before we move on, what's next in music education that's inspiring you right now?
Ooh. It actually was something that annoyed me at first, and that is this career readiness, because in education, right, the pendulum does this. And so it's like, okay, now we're just going to focus on career readiness. And that means like getting jobs. And so they get very practical and literal. Okay, so you're going to be a musician. It's like, pause for a second. I actually need you to think through the skill sets that you need. And I can tell you all of the jobs that allow you to thrive. And I always say, anytime I'm talking to anyone in education, I go, tell me, what are you most concerned by? And what are the things that you want more than ever? And every time it's students to be successful post K-12, right? And I go, then music has got to be a part of it. By the way, I don't believe in force feeding any child. If a child does not want to participate in music, that is completely up to them. We have to get out of the way and make sure they have the opportunity to do it. They choose to, be in athletics or do something else, great. But we shouldn't, as adults, not make them feel like they have to choose or that they can't participate. So there is that piece. But I do think that there is something right now that I like when I see the students that are participating in music, and I'll use CMA Fest as an example. They have this appreciation, right? Because they're music consumers, they're music producers, they love music. And then when you get them at CMA Fest and they go, I had no idea. I didn't know how I was going to use this thing called music because I don't have a desire to do it, to make it professionally. But you mean to tell me like I could do your role? So I do like this inquisitive nature, because education, you only have so many hours in the day. It's like you learn your course subjects and move it right along. And then you go to college, depending on where you go to college. Here are the, 55 majors that we have. And when you say marketing, I'm like, well, I can tell you 800 jobs that you can do with a marketing degree. So I think we think of it being so compartmentalized, but I love this idea right now that we are pushing our young people. And actually, I shouldn't even say adults are pushing it. Young people are pushing adults to be different, to be innovative, to be like, tell me more, show me more. And by the way, when we don't show them, they find it on their own anyways. They're using TikTok, they're using social media. They are quietly, silently begging us to expose them to more. And so that does excite me because it allows music education to get even a little bit bigger. We should be doing everything in our power to like wrap our arms around young people and pull them in. And I think exposing them and allowing music ed, exactly what we talked about at the top of this podcast, is it is not this template anymore. It's a conversation. It's how do we, again, make you curious about what you want for your future? And I do love that about music ed and where it's going, and the hunger that I'm seeing from young people wanting to see how music can allow them to be successful no matter where they are.
Preaching to the choir over here, for real.
I figured I was in good company.
I love it. So we've already talked about the work on the industry side of CMA, mental health, the inclusivity initiatives, research, financial security, all these aspects of your role. And we've also talked about how CMA shows up for the larger industry itself.
Yep.
And one of the things that I love, and I'm going to keep hammering this down, is your care for people, the human whole person. So the DEI initiatives, like the Women's Leadership Academy, how did that come to be for the country music industry? And what have you learned along the process about women in the industry that you might not have known yourself?
Yeah. Oof. Loaded question and a good one. So I think that the association, we shouldn't be exclusive, right? We, by nature of what an association does, we have to be inclusive, and we have to constantly be auditing or inventorying what we do and how we show up for members. And I think when you do that, you start to go, who is not sitting at this table? Who is not in this room? How do we do this? And by the way, it does not just mean, here's an invitation, come and do the things that we're doing. It means you actually have to go out and cultivate a community. And that's where I think we do it differently. So Women's Leadership Academy is a great example. Women have clearly always been members of CMA, and our staff is majority female. We have a female CEO. We have really impressive executive female board members. If you look at the music industry as a whole, there's actually quite a bit of women in it. What I think gave us pause and nervousness is coming out of the pandemic. We just started to see women going, I can't go back to the industry that was. Either I've had children, I'm contemplating having children, or I just want to be a better partner, or I found out that I have hobbies and I want to make sure that I'm giving space to those. I think about friends of mine that took up pottery. And when you give time for people to pause and reflect. And you were kind of forced to go, what do I like and what's important to me? And I think the pandemic gave us that opportunity as humans to do that, but it also really discouraged women from coming back to the workplace. And so I was talking to several women and they were just really struggling. And they were struggling. And for me, I have a beautiful network of women, men, advocates, champions that are in my corner. And what I think compelled me to think about how we needed to start curating a community was the amount of women that didn't feel like they had that, because they had shown up as the professional, got all the work done, but didn't necessarily take a step back and inventory the relationships in their life and how they could lean on them. And so I also felt like the music industry is really unique in that a lot of the music industry, damn near more than half, if not way more than half, by the way, we don't have HR. When you don't have that function, and having worked in other industries that do have that function, one of the things you miss out on, a lot of organizations, a lot of companies will have additional resources or what I would call different development opportunities. So, hey, you became a new manager, you're going to go and we're going to teach you what that looks like. And how do you have courageous conversations? How do you have hard conversations? How do you show up differently? How do you advocate for yourself? How do you create boundaries? How do you negotiate? I was just finding that women felt depleted because they were getting so overwhelmed with the resources they didn't have and the community that lacked. So fast forward, we created Women's Leadership Academy. It's meant to be a small academy. We have 16 participants, every cohort. We're in our 5th cohort. We will announce later in July. But these are executives or women that are in the music business that have made a plea through an application that where they are in life right now, this community is needed. It's necessary. We have 2 executive coaches that kind of walk through them over the course of several months. And I have watched it change the lives of women. And again, now we're starting as an organization to go, great, what Women's Leadership Academy is absolutely beautiful. And how do we replicate that with the other members we serve? How do we make sure that the touring community that feels like they are having a really hard time finding the next generation of touring personnel? We started our touring mentorship program. So our job is to listen, to be guides, and to be generalists and solutionists to whatever the industry is experiencing. So WLA is truly a program that was born out of what the industry said they needed. It wasn't something I made up or anyone on staff made up. It was the industry looking at us and begging us for it. So I think when we think of inclusionary behavior, it is simply to just say, how do we reach all humans that we represent? And now you see that in our programming, it's making sure we're thinking through every lens and not just our individual lens.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part for any association, right? The listening aspect of it and seeing kind of the ecosystem laid out to determine, okay, what do we need to provide to foster these groups of people so that they feel that they are equipped to be their best selves in their work.
Absolutely. Well, and it also creates confidence, right? Like if we're a member organization, our members have to be confident in what we deliver. And that is our responsibility, and we have to show up that way. And I am so proud of how this organization shows up for the industry, even if the industry doesn't get to be in the front seat that we do on the staff when we are actually engaging and working with these individuals. But it is so fulfilling. Yes.
Do you have any other lessons learned that others listening might take away? Was there anything harder than they should be or needed to be that you had to overcome throughout your career?
I feel like one of the lessons, I actually don't talk to a leader that doesn't have a similar experience. Managing people is really tough. Sometimes I look at someone who has the best gig, they're working with all of their teammates, they're achieving things, they're accomplishing things, and they don't have anyone working for them yet. And I go, what a dream. It's also one of the most fulfilling things that happens to you as a leader. When you build a team and you watch the rising tide lifts all ships, like you're all starting to row in the same direction. You round out a team that complements you, but also is passionate about the mission. Like there is nothing better than that. One of the things that has really been on my mind as of recent is the industry and your work is going to move as fast as you do. So if you have 10 things on your list and you crank out all 10 of them, you're going to have 10 more. What's really important is that you are building in time. And I don't just mean the one-on-one time. I mean I'm going to go on this meeting and I'm going to pull a colleague because I want that colleague to see me in a meeting. I want to see that colleague in a meeting. I think there is so much missed because at least in the music industry, we move at the speed of opportunity. And sometimes that is, quite frankly, moving faster than us. And we miss the opportunity to listen and learn from what is happening on our own team, right? So I just told you how we're showing up for WLA. I have to really make a concerted effort to sit down with the team of mine that are primarily all women and say these same things to them. So I think it's I don't want to say just being present because I feel like that sounds very cliche. And also, what does being present mean? But it means writing it down. How are you going to show up for the people that are rowing in your direction? And look, I have not perfected that. And I don't even know that I would say that I'm, great at it, but I am really mindful that you don't do this work by yourself. And you have to bring others along and they have to feel like they're a part of something. Otherwise, you have a bunch of people on the team that are disenfranchised, and I want them to be passionate about their work. And I really believe you can only do that when you've created conditions for them to do that. And so I think it's taking a step back to go, okay, when I tell you this happens to me all the time, I look and I'm like, I've been in meetings for 7 hours. Tiffany, take 20 minutes and reach out to 3 people on your team and just check in. What do you need from me? How are you doing? You good? Great. Hey, by the way, did you see the football score? Whatever it is, find something that you can uniquely talk about with someone because you need it. Otherwise, you're just this workhorse that cranks things out and I think you lose a bit of your personality.
I think that's so incredibly important. I've talked about this a lot as well. In this era, we're so meeting heavy, meeting focused. We're on Zooms all day, right? Or we're just in a room together, right? It's just constant. And sometimes you get into those meetings and people are truly like, okay, let's get down to business. But there's something beautiful and so important of asking about the person. Oh, I heard you just got a dog, or you went on a vacation, or just tapping into who they are outside of, right. Again, tapping into the human is so important. It makes you a better person. Yep. It makes you a better leader. Yeah. And yes, we'll get down to business, but those human connecting moments, I think, are so valuable in that space.
And I will tell you, there even for a while when I was holding department meetings or team meetings, I had a Post-it note that said, pause, ask everyone how they're doing, because I am so conditioned, like, let's get in, let's do this. And I started to feel like I didn't know who was sitting at the table anymore, like what's going on in their lives. And also giving space for those that are like, look, I'm happy to talk to you one-on-one, but like in a group setting, this isn't really my thing. Again, when you make space, I think, for everyone and recognize that we all are these individuals, you start to find things. I used to do icebreakers. So I bought these cards and it would have a question on it. And I'd say, okay, everyone has to answer this. And I know everyone was like, oh my gosh, Tiffany. But it was so great when it's like, okay, if you had to choose to speak a language or have whatever it was, like, it is wild. And then you hear what people say and you're like, why? And then you just kind of laugh and then you go, great, now we're going to get into business. And it feels like you've softened the room a bit to go, hey, I might actually share something that I wasn't going to share before because I just shared with you all that my favorite food is spaghetti. Like, there is something about just giving space to human. And again, like I said, I'm not perfect at it, but I certainly have recognized as I've evolved in my career the importance of it.
We always end our episodes wanting to know who our guests are outside of what they do at work. So who is Tiffany outside of CMA? What brings you joy? And I did hear again from another birdie that you have a deep love for pugs, because I do too.
I do. They run my life. So I have 2 pugs. So yes, pugs bring me a ton of joy. Right now, baking brings me joy. Mowing my lawn, it sounds crazy, but it brings me joy. Mostly because you can see something, it takes an hour and you like have achieved something so great and it's beautiful and there is an art to it.
Yeah.
I love being outside. Growing up in Florida, I feel like I grew up always being outside, even though it is hot as can be. You were used to it and it was just something that you did. And so I love doing anything outside. If you can find me in a pool, you can find me in a lake. I want to be near water. I love water. It allows my brain the space that it needs to think. I love being in community with people. There is nothing that makes me happier than going like, hey, can 4 of us like grab dinner, and to ask questions and again, just be inquisitive about other people and what they're going through. Always making sure that you're showing up as the human. I love to travel, though, if I'm admitting that I really like traveling to warm places. So anytime someone's like, oh, I want to go visit Switzerland in the dead of winter, I'm like, I'm probably not your gal. You're going to find me in the Caribbean.
You set that boundary real quick.
But love your photos. That looked amazing. So I do have to have someone that pushes me to go try something different. I really want to go to Banff, which is not like me at all because again, I'm so used to wanting to be on a beach in order to enjoy a vacation. So pushing myself to more of that. But it really is the simple things. I like being with my dog. I like touching grass. I love listening to podcasts. I love going to shows. I'm reminding myself, again, it can be really hard when you work in the music industry to remind yourself why you got into it for the first place. I went to Alan Jackson's last show at Nissan Stadium on Saturday, and it felt good to sing 90s country and to think about my childhood. And so not complex, but I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Thank you so much for showing up as your full, amazingly inspiring self. The music industry is in such fantastic hands. The music education world is also in fantastic hands with your leadership. And I just can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your really busy schedule to chat with me today.
Thank you so much, Natalie. It's been a joy. And good luck with everything in your world, too.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of Revoicing the Future. You can subscribe to the podcast on all major streaming platforms or on our website. Be sure to follow us on social media to stay connected on all things women in the music industry. This podcast was co-produced and edited by Natalie Morrison, Stephanie Lamond, and Julia Olsen.